Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, Principal Atmospheric Scientist with Nutrient Ag Solutions, and I'm going to thank you for watching this Ag Forecast video brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. Now, you've heard a lot, of course, over the last week about the ship that's been stuck in the Suez Canal, which is right in through here. I'm not sure if you just got a chance to see this, but last week, when the ship was stuck, there was an extremely strong crosswind that went just like this and actually produced a very large dust storm as well. And weather's being blamed on why the ship got turned to the side. Now, last night, if you watched the news here early Monday morning, we heard about partial dislodging of the ship and starting to float again. And that was partly induced by the fact we had a full moon, therefore high tides, but also the winds are a bit more favorable now, more north-south than they were west to east. So we'll have to continue to see how weather plays a role in this ship getting unblocked from the Suez Canal here. I just thought you might like to see that as we start our video off today. Now, we're going to stay international to begin things. And last week we talked a lot about the cooler water that was off of the coast here on the west coast of the United States and Mexico. We also talked about the cooler water that was in the Gulf of Alaska and the extension of it over toward Japan. And then we discussed how the warmer waters still here in the North Atlantic could be critical to our upcoming hurricane season. I want to put some more to this, okay? We call this particular configuration of ocean temperatures, the negative phase of the Pacific Meridional Mode, PMM. Now, the last time we saw the negative phase of the Pacific Meridional Mode looking like this, was back in 2012 into 2013. Now, I am not saying that this upcoming summer has a 2012 look to it. What we're suggesting here is that the the ocean temperatures early in the season resemble the negative phase of the PMM, or the Pacific Meridional Mode. Now, the significance of that is here. This is a correlation map. That's what the color code shows between precipitation in July, August, and September with the PMM. Now, you notice that there is a positive correlation with with the PMM and precipitation. So when you look at this and you see all of these warm colors in through the middle here, that would mean if the PMM were high, then it would be wet. But the Pacific Meridional Mode is low, and that is another reason why I'm concerned about this area, primary corn and soybean belt, of having a drier summer that's coming up. I'm just giving you one more thing to keep watching with me as we kind of wait on the newest model updates, which again will be out on the evening of April the 5th. So I'm looking forward to giving you that new data. Right now, this past week has been extremely stormy, so let's at least talk about that. You're looking at storm reports actually going back all the way to the 13th of March. And as you can see here, we've had over 1,300 reports of severe weather, and many here in the Carolinas, and they're really stacking up there on the Appalachian Mountains as well. Total precip over the last 7 days has been incredibly heavy, and I want to show you some new research that we're working on here at Nutrien to help verify, model biases and model performance. Because as you notice here, a significant stretch in parts of Tennessee, northern Alabama, Georgia, getting back toward Mississippi, and then here in the Appalachian Mountains, we had some extremely heavy rainfall. Now, what I want you to see next is this was the brand new GFS version 16 forecast for last week's precipitation. Now, when you look at this overall and you come back to what happened, there are a few things that the model did very well. It certainly picked up on this early. In other words, this is the forecast graphic from a week ago showing you what the rain was going to look like last week. It got this heavy precip that went right in through here, and it even did pretty well in the lower Mississippi River Valley, getting toward, really down here toward the Delta and the mouth of the Mississippi. Just to let you know where it missed, it over-predicted here, and this is a region that's in drought. So when folks saw this coming and then it didn't materialize, well, you start asking questions. Why are the models underperforming? Well, let me now show you that same map as before. So here we go. And this was the European model forecast. Now, notice for the Carolinas, it was much too dry. While it may have gotten the back edge of the precip shield correct, it did not foresee the heavy rainfall here in parts of the Mid-South. It nailed down here in the lower Mississippi River Valley, but it missed here and it missed there. So what I'm trying to tell you is maybe some of these new upgrades in the version 16 of the GFS may start to show some important improvements, especially in the prediction of precipitation. And that's why probably for the foreseeable future, I'm going to be giving you a model blend every time we do these forecasts, okay? Now, soil moisture values. I just want to point out a few areas that have been missed out and continue to show up incredibly dry and in drought conditions, the northern plains. So corn and soybean farmers here in the Carolinas, just know that this is an area that we are very concerned about for the remainder of the season. We've had a lot of moisture return to the midsection of the country. In fact, maybe a better way to look at this is to show you the numbers here. Now, this is just from March 1st to March 29th, but you're looking at total precipitation ranks by climate district. Now, over the month of March, we've been drier closer to the coast and wetter as you get back toward the mountains, and then very wet once you get over here into parts of Tennessee and Kentucky, northern Alabama, and Mississippi. But you do also see how very wet the midsection of the country is, and that's pushed the drought back farther to the west, which is good. But the northern tier of the United States, both in the northeast and the northwest, very, very dry March time period here. So let's just keep this all in perspective as we think about how some of the crops we grow in the Carolinas are also grown in other places around the United States. Now, the all hazards weather map today, the most obvious colors here to be looking at are all of the wind advisories, wind warnings, red flag warnings that are here and also in the Northeast. But if we come right over here to the Carolinas, the National Weather Service last night issued this area right in through here with a frost advisory. Now, early this morning when I was paying attention to this, I went and checked the surface observations. And in their frost advisory area, mainly what we're going to be seeing in this region is just the lowest lying areas where, because of the still winds, I mean, you can see it. You notice how there are no wind barbs in some of these. We could get some cold air drainage and possibly get a frost in there. I'd be curious to know if anybody got a frost in this region. Of course, as you get back to higher elevation here, we are below freezing in the Appalachian Mountains, right here on the Blue Ridge. But the idea here is just to notice that this is going to be an elevation dependent factor. Now, if we come back and just take another look at those winds, this is the upper level wind pattern. And it's this big ridge that dives into this broad trough right here that we're going to have to pay attention to, because this trough is right now initiating a deep low up here in Canada, but it's going to bring a front that's going to eventually make it all the way over toward us as we get toward the end of this weekend. We have to see what that means for precipitation and also a change in our temperatures, because I don't think we're quite done yet talking about frost. But take a look at these winds today as this deep low really just starts to pull in these southerly winds and wrap them around. In fact, take a look at this. There's a high pressure cell off the coast here. The air's actually coming all around it like that and getting pulled in, while we are sitting underneath higher atmospheric pressure today as the storm system finally left to the northeast that we were dealing with over the weekend. How long will it take for this system to get to us? Well, let's get you an answer on that. But first, I just want to put a number to this, okay? I live right over here in Illinois, okay? So I'm in this area here, and it's been extremely windy, and we're expecting more strong winds. But I was just curious, across the whole of the United States, has March been windy? Because it feels that way. It certainly felt that way in the Carolinas, and the answer is yes. What I did was I produced a map that shows average daily wind speed anomaly, so that's difference compared to normal, over the last 30 days. And what's amazing is if you just look, north of about 30 degrees north, it's been quite windy, very high momentum in the atmosphere. We're down in our La Nina region, which, yes, the La Nina's faded, or even here in this part of the Atlantic, the momentum's been very, very low. So if you felt that it's been windy, the data support exactly that. Now, since we're talking about winds, you notice that in the Carolinas today, we're not dealing with much wind. In fact, here's mid-afternoon, you don't even have a wind speed that's over 10 miles an hour. It's going to be a relatively calm day. All the action's in the midsection of the country. You even go into the day tomorrow. This is now Tuesday, getting into Tuesday night, and even into early Wednesday morning. We're still under high pressure, calm winds, but by that time, the front is sitting right here. When is this? This is 7 a.m. Wednesday, and that front is on its way over to us to knock our temperatures back at the end of the week and also increase our chances of some precipitation. But I just got to show you this. This animation I'm playing for you pretty quickly here is maximum wind gust accumulated, maximum accumulated wind gusts over the next 60 hours or so. So it gets us out to about 1 o'clock on Wednesday. Midsection of the country, the northern plains, we're going to be seeing gusts from the 40 to 70 mile an hour range, while over in the Carolinas, we're going to wait toward the end of the week before this next system moves in. So what do we have in terms of precip? Well, as I kind of move this forward here, you see high pressure is keeping us just fine, until we get out to, this would now be Wednesday morning. We're going to start to see the chances for scattered showers moving in Wednesday morning. You can clearly see the position of the front advancing toward us over here in the Carolinas, which means by the end of the week, that's when we're going to be talking about precipitation. To see that, I'm going to do a multi-model analysis. So let's go look at the European model first. We know that we aren't expecting much until right about here. That's Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon, and evening. Now, this front looks to be still quite strong, and we are expecting to tap into some warm, moist, and unstable air. So my point behind that is, as this comes through this region later on this week, again, Wednesday night into the overnight hours, we do need to be on the lookout for some stronger storms out of this. But watch what happens. By Thursday morning, sitting on the edge of that boundary like this, low pressure will develop here right on the Appalachian Mountains and start moving toward the north and east. And this could bring in some snow to the Appalachian Mountains and more rain as we stretch across here, across North Carolina. Now that moves into the northeast pretty quickly. And as we get into Easter weekend, this is now Friday evening, we have high pressure and control for Saturday, and it's still there into Sunday and even out into Monday. So we just have this end of the week system we're going to be watching here. And just to let you know, the European model and the GFS are kind of in lockstep with this. So watch. Here we go through Tuesday. There comes the next storm system. This is Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon, and Wednesday evening. Again, that's when I'm watching for the chance for those storms. And just like the European, it blows up into a cyclone that runs up the northeast, and we could get some snow on the backside here in the Appalachian Mountains overnight Wednesday into early Thursday morning. And then, as we saw in the European, everything clears out, higher pressure moves in for Easter weekend. Okay, put all that together. Here's how much precip we're going to get. Now, this was from last night. And as we move this forward, the rainfall comes in. This is now Wednesday morning, afternoon, and evening, getting into Thursday morning, afternoon, and evening. And so what we're going to pay attention to here with this system is the chance for bringing in maybe half of an inch, in some locations over an inch to an inch and a half of rainfall out of this next system that comes through. And there is a good agreement between this and the GFS as well. But you notice that that's it. As I keep kind of moving beyond that, notice how your colors aren't changing. That's because high pressure builds in behind that. And just to show you, the GFS is kind of on board with a very similar precipitation pattern. A little different in the central part of, right around Raleigh, a little drier, but overall a very similar pattern. Snowfall, just want to let you know, chances for picking up a couple of inches here through the next week as that system takes off into the northeast does exist back in the Appalachian Mountains here in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Okay, so putting it all together here, through the next week, we are wetter than normal. As you can see here from the European model, it is picking up on a wet bias, although we're just barely on this side of wet. Question is, what happens after that? Because much of this is coming through with just that system at the end of this week. So let's now show you what's going to happen. Okay, watch the deep trough. Here it is in the midsection of North America, cuts through us by the end of the week, right there. That's our precip maker. But then it quickly exits, and the North Atlantic stacks up this high over low that pushes a ridge up into the Arctic, forcing this trough back over to Alaska. Long story short, everything starts to ridge out again east of the Rocky Mountains. And if that happens, well, the cooler air moves out quickly, warmth returns, and the flow pattern starts doing that again. Now, what that ends up meaning is we're going to start to see systems coming out of the plains. And as they race across the country, they will bring fronts through. Will it be cold? I don't think so. I don't think it'll be enough cooler air around to do this, but it will increase some chances for precipitation. So let's talk about it. Even though the week 2 is showing up drier here, remember a lot of this is at the front half of that week. As this pattern reestablishes and takes off like that, we're going to draw in moisture, and I think it's going to go back over to being more active than the model suggests. But I'll just show you that that drier time period you're going to get starting on Easter weekend at least does last for a little while before the activity kind of regains. So we might be getting a lot of field work in here while we're waiting on this pattern to kind of reignite getting into that first week of the month of April here. All right, temperatures. Let's walk you back here. There we go. This is now Monday's temperatures. We're cool today, but watch this. As we get into Tuesday and Wednesday, the warmth comes towards us, right? But now you see where the frontal boundary is located, and then it swipes in. There's Thursday. There's Friday. These are highs, by the way. But as you get into Easter weekend, Saturday, watch the recovery here into Sunday. And it does move out after that, but I want to show you a couple things here. This is now the forecast model temperatures by the European. I want to let you know something. I put a hard break on my color bar at freezing. So as we move forward, this is the system coming toward us. So you see the front advancing right there by Wednesday morning. This is now Wednesday afternoon and evening. Here we go. There's Thursday at midnight or 1 a.m. Here is Thursday morning. So now the cold air is advancing, and has advanced through us. And what we get on the back side of it, this is, there we go, Friday morning, 7 a.m. That's a frost event. We got to be very careful about this Friday morning. Very cold air getting pretty far to the south. As we go from there, this is, let's get to it there, right there. That's Saturday morning as well. Now, after that, I can play this quickly. Look at how things recover. Whew. Get those warmer colors back in there. We go back over to a warm first week of April after the cold kind of Easter or start to Easter weekend. So day 5 through 10, this cold gets out here, and look at the warmth that's coming in behind this. It's in the European model as well. And by day 10 through 15, now we've gone back over to that warmer pattern I discussed with you as the trough settles in here and the ridge becomes established in this area. That is also in the European model. All right. Now, how long does that last? Well, to answer that, I want to look at one tropical feature because we've looked at Alaska, we've looked at Greenland, we know what the North Pacific jet stream is doing. What's going on in the tropics is that the MJO is coming out of phase 4 and is expected over the next 2 weeks to go through 5, 6, and 7. Now, the logical progression would be into phases 8, 1, and 2. But the question becomes, does it collapse back into null space and pop back out over here into phase 5? That's what we're going to be observing and trying to understand. Now, the reason why I ask that is because of this. You see, if it doesn't and it keeps sweeping around and goes over into phase 3, well, that could signal colder weather late in April. Now, remember, to be colder than normal late in April, I mean, we're not talking about cold here, right? I mean, it's the Carolinas in late April, but it's just not a hot pattern. So what we'll have to watch is to see if it actually does that, okay? If it swipes, if it comes way out like this, or if it stays in here tighter, because these are the cold phases. When the MJO is over by Africa or in the Indian Ocean, we tend to be colder here. Now, one last thing to look at, longer term. So this is mid-April, and this is going to be a 1-week sliding window. What we notice that the models do here is that really throughout much of April, they don't back away, even getting into the start of May, from the above average temperatures. This does not mean we won't have shots at some cooler air coming in, but the longer range forecasts try to keep a lot of that cooler air tucked back here. And therefore, if the pattern is doing that in between it with more maybe high pressure here, this could signal a continuation of kind of some rapid accumulation of some heat early in the season. But remember, before we get here, we've got to get through the end of this week where we do have frost issues coming in Friday morning and Saturday morning and some cooler weather to start our Easter weekend. I'll keep an eye on it. I'll report back to you next week again. Until then, have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.